The Las Vegas Strip was once the beating heart of America's nightlife, a place where fortunes were made and lost in a single night, where neon lights burned so bright they erased the darkness of the desert. But today, if you walk those same streets, you'll find something shocking: empty sidewalks, quiet casinos, entire resorts sitting half full, their lobbies echoing with silence. This didn't happen by accident. According to a former casino CEO, Las Vegas is empty on purpose. For decades, the city was sold as the land of endless opportunity and non-stop entertainment. Millions of tourists poured in every year, convinced that Vegas could never fail. But behind closed doors, powerful figures were making decisions that would change the Strip forever. What if the emptiness isn't a sign of decline, but part of a calculated plan? What if the casino bosses themselves wanted this collapse? Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on the hidden truth about Las Vegas, the financial games, the insider deals, and the ruthless strategy that left America's playground looking more like a ghost town. Stay tuned, because what you're about to hear will forever change the way you see Sin City. Las Vegas was never supposed to be just another city. It was built to defy reality, a glittering oasis carved out of the Nevada desert where dreams, money, and excess collided. In the mid-20th century, the Strip became the crown jewel of American entertainment. Rat Pack legends like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin packed theaters, Elvis Presley turned sold-out shows into cultural phenomena, and the casinos themselves grew into architectural marvels, palaces of light, sound, and spectacle that promised anything was possible. For decades, Vegas wasn't just a destination, it was a symbol of ambition. Americans flocked there to chase jackpots, while tourists from Asia and Europe came to experience what they believed was the pinnacle of luxury and freedom. The streets buzzed with life 24 hours a day. Neon lights reflected off limousines, high rollers stacked chips in smoke-filled rooms, and even ordinary workers felt the energy of living inside a city that never slowed down. The business model was simple but unstoppable. More visitors meant more money. Casinos offered cheap buffets, discount hotel rooms, and endless perks just to get people inside, because once a tourist walked through the doors, the house always won. Billions poured into the city every year. Developers raced to outdo each other, building mega resorts that doubled as entertainment complexes, theme parks, and luxury malls. By the 1990s, Las Vegas was the fastest-growing city in America, attracting not just gamblers, but families, celebrities, and corporations eager to host conventions in the desert paradise. Behind that success, though, was an unspoken truth. Vegas thrived on illusion. The flashing lights and free cocktails distracted from the reality that every spin of the roulette wheel, every pull of a slot machine, was mathematically designed to bleed money from players. And yet, people came willingly happy to be part of the spectacle. This was the genius of Las Vegas. It didn't just sell gambling, it sold hope. Hope that you could beat the odds. Hope that you could live a night larger than life. Hope that you could be someone else, even if just until your flight home. But that golden era was also fragile. It relied on constant growth, on an endless stream of tourists feeding the machine. For decades, the city expanded under the assumption that demand would never slow. The Strip stretched longer, the casinos got taller, the jackpots got bigger. And as long as the planes kept landing, the system worked. By the early 2000s, Las Vegas was pulling in over 35 million visitors a year, generating billions in gambling revenue alone. The brand was untouchable, an American empire of chance. It was during this height of success that Vegas cemented its myth as a city immune to collapse. Economic downturns hit other states, but Vegas always found a way to lure visitors back with new attractions, celebrity residencies, or simply the promise of reinvention. Nothing, it seemed, could break the machine, or so the world thought. Because while outsiders saw an empire of neon that could never fail, insiders were already whispering that Vegas had grown too fast, too big, and too dependent on a fragile stream of money that could dry up overnight. And when it did, the results would be catastrophic. The first signs of decline didn't come with flashing alarms. They crept in quietly, like shadows stretching across the desert. Hotel occupancy rates started slipping, not by much at first, just a few percentage points. Casino floors that once throbbed with life began to show patches of empty seats. Tourists from overseas, particularly China and Canada, who had once been pillars of the Strip's profits, suddenly weren't coming in the same numbers. At first, analysts blamed inflation. Prices of everything from airfare to cocktails were climbing. A single buffet that used to cost $10 was now closer to $50. Hotel fees piled up with hidden charges, and the magic of cheap Vegas had evaporated. For middle-class travelers, the city was no longer a bargain, it was a trap. But rising prices only explained part of the mystery. Beneath the surface, something stranger was happening. Some casinos deliberately scaled back operations. Entire sections of gaming floors were quietly shut down. Restaurants reduced hours. Even shows that once drew packed audiences suddenly went dark sometimes without explanation. Employees whispered about being told to keep quiet when asked why the rooms were empty. Tourists noticed the eerie silence and started asking if Vegas had lost its shine. By 2024, the numbers were impossible to ignore. Visitor counts fell sharply, and the Strip felt hollow in a way that no one could remember. What had once been a constant hum of human energy was now punctuated by long stretches of quiet. Taxi drivers complained of fewer fares, Uber drivers sat idle at McCarran Airport, and street performers on the Strip had no one to entertain. The neon still flickered, but there were fewer eyes to see it. For ordinary observers, the explanation seemed straightforward. The economy was struggling, and people were simply spending less. But insiders began hinting at something deeper. They spoke of an intentional slowdown, a strategy orchestrated by the very casinos that were supposedly suffering. It was almost unthinkable. Why would billion-dollar resorts want fewer customers? But the evidence was everywhere. Instead of dropping prices to attract more visitors, casinos raised them. Instead of rolling out promotions to fill empty rooms, they scaled back. It looked less like mismanagement and more like a controlled collapse. This idea gained more traction when whispers began to circulate from those who worked behind the velvet curtains of the Strip. Dealers, pit bosses, even hotel managers told similar stories. The orders weren't to save Vegas, but to reshape it. "We were told not to worry about half-empty floors," one former employee admitted. The bosses said this was all part of the bigger picture, that we were entering a new phase. The question was what phase. Economists studying the numbers noted that the casinos were acting against their own short-term interests. Normally, when a business faces declining traffic, it slashes prices, floods the market with deals, and fights for every customer. Las Vegas did the opposite. Prices soared, amenities shrank, and accessibility diminished. In effect, the Strip was shutting its own doors. It was as if the city was intentionally building walls around itself, filtering who could afford to come and who would be left behind. Tourists, of course, felt betrayed. Social media filled with complaints from visitors who described paying luxury prices for what felt like ghost town experiences. "I paid $500 for a room and the place was empty," one reviewer wrote. It felt creepy, not glamorous. Others complained that the energy, the very soul of Vegas was gone. Without crowds, without the buzz of constant excitement, the Strip felt like just another overbuilt desert highway lined with oversized hotels. The contrast to the city's past made the emptiness even more disturbing. Just years earlier, Las Vegas had been riding high on a rebound after the pandemic slump. Concert residencies by global superstars packed arenas. International visitors returned in waves. Convention centers brimmed with business deals. The city seemed unstoppable again. So how did it all unravel so quickly? The answer, according to the whispers of insiders, was simple but unsettling. It didn't unravel at all. It was orchestrated. The decline wasn't a failure. It was a reset, a deliberate thinning of the crowd designed to change the very identity of Las Vegas. Behind the silence of the Strip lay a calculated plan, and one former casino CEO was about to step forward and confirm what many had long suspected, that the emptiness was never an accident, but a strategy crafted in the boardrooms of power. When the former casino CEO finally spoke, the effect was like an earthquake shaking the desert floor. His name had once been synonymous with one of the Strip's most iconic resorts, a man who had overseen billions in revenue celebrity headliners and expansions that reshaped the skyline. But after stepping down and watching the industry he helped build hollow itself out, he decided it was time to reveal what had been whispered about for years. Las Vegas is not empty by accident, he said in a private interview that quickly went public. It's empty because that's what we wanted. At first, his words sounded outrageous. Why would casino executives, men and women whose entire fortunes depended on crowds, deliberately chase those crowds away? The answer, he explained, lay in the brutal economics of the Strip. For decades, casinos operated on volume. Millions of middle-class visitors dropped small amounts of money that added up to massive profits. But as costs rose and the global economy shifted, that model became harder to sustain. Executives began to ask why chase millions of small fish when you can focus on catching a handful of whales. According to the former CEO, the strategy was clear: thin the herd. Make the city too expensive for casual gamblers and weekend tourists, and in their place, cultivate an elite clientele. High rollers from tech finance and global wealth hubs who could drop six figures in a single night. By emptying the Strip of the masses, the casinos were reshaping Vegas into a playground exclusively for the ultra-rich. The goal was never to keep Vegas full, he admitted. The goal was to make it exclusive. But exclusivity wasn't the only reason. The CEO revealed that consolidation was another motive. When visitor numbers dropped and revenues shrank, smaller operators who couldn't weather the storm were forced to sell. Prime properties went up for grabs at bargain prices, and the biggest casino conglomerates quietly scooped them up. What looked like a city in decline was in reality a strategic land grab. We let the market collapse on purpose, the CEO confessed, because when the dust settles, only the strongest survive, and we wanted to be the only ones left standing. The plan wasn't just about real estate, it was about power. By shrinking the audience and controlling access, casinos could manipulate demand, raise prices at will, and remove any competition that had thrived on lower-cost visitors. The CEO even admitted that some resorts intentionally scaled back amenities, not because they couldn't afford them, but because they wanted to send a message: if you can't afford Vegas at its most expensive, you don't belong here. Perhaps most shocking was his description of how closely this plan was tied to Wall Street. Hedge funds and private equity firms, he revealed, had been pushing for this strategy for years. They saw Vegas not as an entertainment hub, but as a financial asset to be stripped down, consolidated, and rebuilt for maximum returns. Tourist volume mattered less than stock performance. They don't care about the magic of Vegas, he said. They care about quarterly earnings. And if fewer visitors mean higher margins, then emptiness is profitable. The CEO's words confirmed what many employees had long suspected. The eerie silence on casino floors wasn't mismanagement, it was design. Every shuttered restaurant, every darkened theater, every quiet night on the Strip was a step toward the future Vegas the executives envisioned. Not a bustling carnival for the masses, but a curated playground for the elite, a city where only the wealthiest could afford to stay, gamble, and play. The revelation sent shockwaves through the community. Workers who had lost their jobs suddenly understood why. Tourists who had felt alienated realized they were never supposed to come back. And locals who had always known Vegas as a city built on crowds confronted the chilling truth that their home was being re-engineered into something entirely different. This isn't the Vegas I helped build, the CEO admitted with a rare note of regret. We built this city on people, millions of them. Now it's being rebuilt for the few. And when the lights come back on, don't expect the same city you remember. The fallout from this strategy has been devastating for the people who built their lives around Las Vegas. Entire neighborhoods that once thrived on the constant influx of tourists now sit half deserted, with small businesses shuttering one after another. Restaurants that had served the working class and middle-income visitors saw their customer base evaporate almost overnight. Cab drivers, cocktail servers, performers, and dealers. Tens of thousands of jobs were wiped out, casualties of a decision made in high-rise boardrooms far from the casino floors. For the residents of Las Vegas, the so-called reset meant not opportunity, but despair. According to local reports, unemployment in service sectors spiked as early as 2024, with workers forced to relocate or take minimum wage jobs outside the Strip. The iconic street performers, once symbols of Vegas's eccentric energy, now stand on sidewalks that attract barely a fraction of the foot traffic they used to. The Strip, which had been alive with a carnival atmosphere, feels more like an abandoned movie set, a glittering backdrop without the actors. And yet, for the powerful players behind this plan, the emptiness was never a failure, it was the desired outcome. By forcing the city into silence, they created an artificial crisis that gave them leverage. Struggling businesses were forced to sell at rock-bottom prices, leaving the market open for the largest conglomerates and outside investors to swoop in. Entire casino chains were absorbed into megacorporations, consolidating power in ways that would have been impossible during Vegas's boom years. The Strip, once defined by competition, became the property of a handful of corporate giants. The former casino CEO described this as controlled demolition. The idea was to tear down the old Vegas not literally, but structurally, so that it could be rebuilt into something new. You can't create exclusivity in a city built for the masses, he explained. So the masses had to be pushed out. The plan was brutal, but effective. Starve. The system let the weakest links collapse, then rebuild on the ashes. But exclusivity comes with a cost. By designing a Vegas only for billionaires and international elites, the city risks losing its identity. The Las Vegas that lived in American culture, the wild weekend getaway, the bachelor party capital, the place where anyone could walk in and feel like a high roller for a night, is disappearing. In its place is a gated playground for the few, a version of the Strip, where average tourists are no longer welcome. The ripple effects extend far beyond Nevada. International travelers who once flew in from Asia and Europe are now choosing other destinations, frustrated by the rising costs and diminished experience. Conventions, once the backbone of Vegas's economic calendar, are pulling out as organizers realize they can no longer attract enough attendees willing to pay inflated prices. Even high rollers are noticing that without the crowds, without the energy, the Vegas experience feels hollow. The irony is that in chasing exclusivity, the casinos may have undermined the very magic that drew elites in the first place. Still, the insiders remain confident. Financial analysts connected to the industry argue that the strategy is working. Casino conglomerates report stable margins despite lower attendance, largely because of the massive sums extracted from a smaller, wealthier clientele. Stock prices for major gaming corporations have held strong, buoyed by investors who see the new Vegas as leaner, more efficient, and more profitable in the long run. As one Wall Street report bluntly stated, fewer guests, higher spend per capita. Vegas is evolving, not collapsing. For ordinary Nevadans, however, that evolution feels like betrayal. Community leaders warn that the city is hollowing out, turning into a corporate shell divorced from its people. Activists point to rising homelessness, shrinking wages, and the loss of cultural soul as proof that the strategy is killing more than just business. It's killing the spirit of the city. They say they're saving Vegas, one local resident said bitterly. But what they're saving doesn't look anything like the Vegas we knew. The haunting reality is this: the emptiness on the Strip is not a temporary slump, it's the blueprint. And as the former CEO admitted, the long-term goal is nothing less than a complete transformation of Las Vegas into a luxury enclave, an experiment in turning America's most accessible playground into one of its most exclusive fortresses. The question now isn't whether Vegas will bounce back, it's whether ordinary people will ever be allowed back at all. Behind the glowing lights and empty halls of Las Vegas lies a truth even darker than exclusivity. The former casino CEO made it clear that what the public sees, the silence, the vacant hotel towers, the shuttered restaurants, is just the surface. Beneath it all is a web of money politics and secrecy that stretches far beyond Nevada's borders. They don't just want to rebuild Vegas, he warned. They want to control it, and the emptiness gives them cover. According to insiders, one of the unspoken benefits of an empty Vegas is that it makes financial manipulation easier. With fewer customers, fewer eyes are on the books. Declining traffic provides the perfect excuse for creative accounting for funneling money through shell companies. and for shifting funds across international borders without raising alarms. Investigators have long suspected that casinos were prime vehicles for money laundering, but the silence of the Strip makes the process even harder to track. As the CEO explained, when the floors are quiet, no one's counting chips too closely. You can move millions through the system and nobody notices. Wall Street's fingerprints are everywhere in this story. Private equity firms that once had little interest in the day-to-day operations of gambling suddenly saw opportunity in the downturn. With visitor counts falling, they could demand drastic restructuring. Casino executives under pressure from investors began prioritizing balance sheets over people. For these firms, the emptiness of Las Vegas was not a crisis, but an opportunity, a way to streamline operations, slash labor costs, and focus on big spending elites who generated outsized returns. And then there's the international angle. The CEO hinted at shadowy partnerships with foreign investors, particularly those seeking discreet ways to park money in the United States. High-end casinos emptied of ordinary tourists became the perfect front for transactions hidden in plain sight. Billionaires could wire funds, lose them on the tables, and walk away with clean money. Regulators might raise questions, but with Vegas visibly struggling, the narrative was already in place. The emptiness became a smokescreen. Even more troubling were the whispers about political collusion. The CEO claimed that state officials, fully aware of the decline, allowed the process to unfold. Why? Because they too benefited. Tax revenues from a handful of massive corporate players were easier to manage than from dozens of smaller operators. Lobbyists promised campaign support, and suddenly no one in power wanted to ask why Vegas was half dead. The silence wasn't just on the casino floors, he said. It was in the government offices too. What makes this revelation chilling is that the strategy goes beyond economics. It's about control. By engineering scarcity, fewer rooms, fewer seats, fewer tickets, casinos create an illusion of exclusivity. They can dictate who gets access at what price and on whose terms. And once they hold that power, they can reshape the culture of Las Vegas entirely. What was once America's playground is morphing into something closer to a private club for global elites. But here's what they don't want you to know. This emptiness is not temporary. According to the CEO, there is no plan to bring the masses back. In fact, the long-term vision is to make sure they never return. New resort designs are tailored for luxury suites, private gaming salons, and VIP-only entertainment. Developers are openly courting foreign billionaires, celebrities, and tech moguls, not families from Kansas or couples from Ohio. For the everyday visitor, Vegas is being priced out of reach deliberately. And as the Strip grows quieter, the power behind it grows louder. Hedge funds, foreign investors, and corporate giants are reshaping the city into a financial hub disguised as an entertainment destination. The neon is still there, but it's not for you. It's a stage light for transactions, a distraction, while fortunes move invisibly through the system. Perhaps the most unsettling question is whether Las Vegas is just the beginning. If the most flamboyant city in America can be hollowed out and transformed into a machine for elites, what other cities could face the same fate? If a place built on accessibility and mass spectacle can be repurposed for secrecy and control, how safe are any of America's cultural landmarks from the same blueprint? The former CEO left his audience with a single haunting line: Vegas didn't collapse, it was emptied. And when you realize who did it, you'll understand it was never about gambling. It was about power. Las Vegas has always thrived on illusion. The neon lights, the ringing slot machines, the endless flow of champagne, it was all designed to make you believe in magic. But now, the greatest illusion of all has been exposed. The emptiness of the Strip was never a coincidence. It was engineered, calculated, and executed by those who stood to profit most. A former casino CEO broke the silence, and his confession pulls back the curtain on what Sin City has truly become. The city that once promised opportunity for everyone has been repurposed into a playground for the few. Workers have been discarded, tourists shut out, and small businesses crushed, all in service of a bigger vision, a Vegas that belongs not to America, but but to the global elite. Behind every darkened theater and every quiet casino floor lies a story of power money laundering, corporate greed, and political collusion. And if they could empty a city as legendary as Las Vegas, then what else could they empty next? As the lights still shimmer on the strip, ask yourself, this, are they shining for you or for someone else? The truth revealed by those who built this empire suggests a chilling answer. Vegas hasn't died, it's been stolen, reshaped, and hidden in plain sight. The real question is whether America will ever take it back, or if the city of dreams has already been permanently rewritten.